Good evening. Welcome to the Fairfield City School District Board of Education meeting for July 11th, 2024. Mrs. Lane, please call the order.
Mr. Begley?
Here.
Mrs. Birding Miller?
Present.
Mr. Clark?
Present.
Mrs. Gundrum?
Here.
Mr. Napier?
Mr. Clark, will you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Absolutely. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. First order of business would be public communication. We have no one signed up to speak tonight, so we will move on to superintendent recommendations and reports. Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Begley. At this time, I'd like to ask Mrs. Howard to cover the items listed under Personnel Professional and Personnel Support.
Thank you, Mr. Smith, Mr. Begley, and members of the board. I have several items for your consideration this evening. Under Personnel Professional, number 1, resignations, letters A through F, and number 2, employment, letters A through G. And that concludes all the items I have for your consideration under Personnel Professional.
Thank you. We'll entertain a motion to accept those recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Clark, Mrs. Gundrum. Mrs. Lane, please call the roll.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mrs. Gundrum?
Yes.
Mrs. Birding Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Begley?
Yes.
I also have several items for your consideration this evening under Personnel Support. Number 1, resignations, letters A through D, and number 2, employment, letters A through D. I would like to bring special attention to letter C under resignations there. Our treasurer, Nancy Lane, will be retiring effective September 30th. Nancy has been dedicated to serving our district for 28 years, and during her tenure with us, she's made very significant contributions to our school district. Her dedication and her professionalism have been greatly appreciated by all of us. So we are very grateful for all the time that she has spent with us and for the positive impact that she has had on our entire community, and we wish her all the best in her retirement. And that concludes all the items I have for your consideration under Personnel Support.
Thank you, Mrs. Howard. That was well done. Motion to accept these recommendations.
So moved.
Second.
Mrs. Birding Miller and Mrs. Gundrum. Mrs. Lane, please read the...
Mrs. Birding Miller?
Yes.
Mrs. Gundrum?
Yes.
Mr. Clark?
Yes.
Mr. Begley?
Yes.